about your criteria, and then we're going to critique it, man. We're gonna hit you up with a little bit of our thoughts on it, but just tell us a little bit about what into it and why you decided to kind of rank people where you did.
When I came up this list probably like a few years ago, and every year I look back at it, I'm like, I tweak it, see how I like in this, like, but it's hard to do 50 top 50 wrestlers, let alone a top 10 or anything. I did 50 because I was just let me go at it. And I remember just going through like a week stretch where I just watched so much, wrestling, like an old school wrestling, and it's really hard to really put together a list, because there's so many aspects of wrestling. It's not just the actual wrestling, it's the promos and, if you're over championships. And so when I just put it together, I try to cram everything together, and I just say, who do I think are the best guys? And that's kind of how I went about this list. And some guys that I like personally, but, I just put who I think are the best professional wrestlers. And it wasn't just WWE. Guys from NWA and TNA and, WCW days and, ECW. And I just try to figure out, all right, who I think are the best. And that's kind of how I made this list. But it's probably the hardest list to do out of anything, even, football, basketball. It's probably the hardest thing because there's just so many aspects that goes into, who do I think is the best? Who do I think, who fits there? And I every day I look at the list like, well, all right, I should move that guy up. And then, oh, damn, people look, oh, why do you have that guy so low? I was like, oh, well, I like his wrestling catalog. I like his matches better than this guy. But this guy's a good promo. It's like, yeah, he is better. So there's just so many aspects, of wrestling that's just not just strictly wrestling. Like I said, promos and, I like entrances. I'm a big entrance guy too. Entrance pop. If I like entrances. So there were just so many criteria I had. So I just try to put them all together and try to make the best list I could possibly make, and not just be also recent bias. Sure. I'm 31, so attitude era is kind of my. I don't have just guys. Oh, just anyone from the attitude era. I try to get older guys too. From the 80s and 70s. Try to compact the list, and I think I had a solid list, but everyone's list would be different. So
for sure,
so that's just kind of how I went about it.
Kyle, I know you got a lot of thoughts on this. We got to take to a quick break, and we'll come back with your thoughts. But we'll be right back on Dad's Watching Sports. We got the hot take of Kyle's thoughts on the top 50 wrestlers of all time list. We will be right back. Thanks for checking out this week's episode of Dad's Watching Sports. We hope you subscribe to our show in Apple Podcast app as well, or wherever you listen to podcasts. But are you following us on social media? Now, whether your thing is Facebook, Twitter, the Gram, YouTube, or yes, even TikTok, you can find some great dad content on all of our pages. Now, enough of this nonsense. We just need to pay Kirk's PlayStation internet bill. Now, back to the show with Matt, Kyle, Michael, and all the fun of Dad's Watching Sports. And we are back here on Dad's Watching Sports. It's episode 18, the week of June 7th, 2020. Michael Draper, Kyle Castles, and Chris LeBron of the Off the Ball podcast. Chris is talking about his top 50 wrestlers of all time list. You can check it out on his website. Kyle, I know you got a lot of good thoughts on it. Before you get into yours, Chris, as I was just looking through it, and I'll be honest, I just had a few moments to glance at it earlier today. But when I looked at it, I said, man, first off, kudos for you to going through and like I said, putting all this info in. I think Roddy Piper might be a little too high just on my in terms of my comparison and how I see him kind of ranking in the historical greats. And Triple H, I know he's kind of going on to bigger and better things, but having him where you had him, I thought he was a little low. That's just my opinion, but he's definitely one of the all-time greats for sure. So Kyle, I'm gonna toss it over to you. Because I know you've been chomping at the bit to talk about this. What's some of your thoughts on that list?
Yeah. So first off, heck of a job. I think there's some people you left off. I don't remember seeing Andre on there. I feel like Andre the Giant.
I think I had him.
Is he down low? Maybe.
He's maybe a little low. I might have left him out on accident. If I did, that's my mistake. Yeah. And let me see.
I don't have your list in front of me. I just have my notes, and I
think I left him out.
And ultimately. And I wasn't going to even bring this one up because I get why you would have left him off, but you mentioned entrances, and one of the best entrances ever, Ultimate Warrior. And I get that he cut some nonsensical promos, but in the late '80s, with just the charisma and the delivery and all, it kind of worked real well. So those are two that I thought might need to get thrown on. But your top two, you can't go wrong. Michaels, Flair. I don't care which one you'll put 1, 2. That's perfect.
Yes,
there is not better than those two. However, Taker at 3 kind of bothered me.
Okay.
I think he's the best character ever. By far the best character. However, I don't feel he's ever been the biggest draw in that company at any time.
No, you're right.
I think Brett was a bigger draw. Shawn was a bigger draw. Then Austin was a bigger draw. Rock was a bigger draw. Trips was a bigger draw. Lesnar, Cena. I mean, they've all been bigger draws. And that's taking anything away. I think that Taker's the best big man ever. Right, so I mean, I'm not taking anything away, but to me, Austin's number 3, and especially if you go look at his early stuff in WCW days when he was tagging with Brian Pillman, when he was in the what was
Pillman, man. Yeah.
What was the
Hollywood Blondes,
the Hollywood Blondes, when he was in the Dangerous Alliance with Paulie Dangerous,
he cut those promos. That
was some great promos there, right? And he had, Rick Rude was in that group too. That was a great group, right?
Yeah.
So I think that was. I feel like Austin. If you start to look at that, the work rate's there, the matches are there, and then character change. I mean, when he goes to Stone Cold, he can't do that type of style in the ring. Plus injuries, it changes him. He goes to this brawler. But to me, like the only person that can touch his mic work is The Rock and maybe Flair at his very best.
Flair and Rock. I would have loved the Flair Rock.
Oh, I know.
Program.
Give me like 19. What was it? 83, 84 Flair for the gold, where he was with the Race in the Ring. Give me that Flair with Rock from like what 2000, 99, 2000.
Even heel Rock was to me is the most underrated heel. I know it wasn't that long. It was probably a few months, but heel Rock.
Yeah.
Promos were just A1. Like the promos he cut against Austin, Goldberg. It's tremendous. But
and then you were talking about some great heel mic work. You got one of my guys that I love. My favorite guy to never win a world title was Jake Roberts.
Oh my God, he's so good.
So he cut a promo at the 91 Survivor Series. That was right after, if you remember, he had the Cobra that bit
Randy Savage.
Macho Man.
Randy Savage, and he talks to Elizabeth in the promo, and that late '80s, early '90s where they scream everything, and he's just quiet. You got to listen, and oh my God, he's great. That's probably my favorite promo of all time, regardless of it. I will point out that there were no women on your list.
Yeah, I probably should have just put. Yeah, that's what I meant. It's just the men, but the women. That's something I'm definitely going to work on too. Because that's
so. If you wanted to throw some women on, my first thought was Medusa, Alundra Blaze. I mean, she kind of puts women wrestling.
Yeah, she changed the game.
Yeah, but if you can talk about some of the Joshis from Japan, like Chigusa Nagayo or Lioness Asuka, like those women just tore the house down all the time. And that was a tag team. I forget what their name was, but you got some women you could throw in there. I wouldn't be surprised if you go another 10 years, you might be able to throw Charlotte Flair on this list.
She's tremendous.
Maybe
I know people give her a lot of crap, because she's Flair and
fantastic.
She's really good.
I love Sasha Banks. I love her in-ring work. I think she's great. So there's some of these women that now that women are getting a spotlight, they're starting to put together some really good matches, some good storytelling. So all in all, great list. A few of them that I probably I would take off. Had some others, but I'm not going to argue with you.
I did think of one that kind of like you saw Andre wasn't on the list. That I'll be honest with you, Chris, I'm a little disappointed it didn't make your cut, and that's the Disco Inferno, man. Disco Inferno was burning.
He's still wrestling. He's still wrestling in Impact Wrestling.
Of course he is. Because he's one of the top 50 greatest wrestlers of all time, man. I'm talking about one of the greatest characters. He just I follow him on Twitter. He's pretty common.
Yeah, he's funny. Yeah, he's. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna work on a women's list for sure, because there's so, like you said, there's so much talented females now, and
especially out of Japan there in the late '80s and through the '90s, like there was so much good talent.
Yeah, and then Impact too, Impact TNA, and after to 2010 to 2014, the Knockouts division.
Yeah,
Gail Kim, Mickey James, Velvet Sky, Yeah, they were really they kind of started the revolution with the women.
Absolutely.
True
well, I
revolution.
mean, you could look at Velvet Sky and Angelina Love.
Yeah, the beautiful people. Yeah, the beautiful people.
And they, you early on they were not great, but man, by the time you get to that 2010, 2011, man, they are firing on all cylinders.
Yeah. Awesome Kong too.
Awesome
Kong and Gail King matches were like tremendous. Yeah. So I definitely got to do a women's list. That's definitely our.
I'm going to be honest. This is the last probably 2 minutes of this conversation has just been whoosh, right. Y'all are naming names off, and kudos to y'all. But I'm like, man, I'll be honest.
I mean, I didn't even mention Aja Kong, but when you said Awesome Kong, maybe think about
it's
good
crazy.
Stuff.
So much talent.
That's good stuff. Let's shift gears, and I know we were going to talk about your NBA list, and we're just kind of running out of time, so we'll have to come back to that. And I know we had some good thoughts on that, but one thing I wanted to get to that we are actually going to see here in the near future, Chris, some of the other stuff you do on your website is you kind of redraft NBA drafts. So just tell us a little bit of kind of what goes into that, and let's talk a little bit about the 2020 NBA draft as we found out exactly when that date's going to be. But tell us a little bit about what goes into those redrafts that you do on your website.
Yeah, it's I love doing redrafts. It's something I just do on a regular by myself. So I decided to, I've done 3 so far. So I just decided to go find a guest and we just go on and we just we do our own redrafts, and we usually do the lottery, and it's fun to go back and see people's mess ups and why people didn't draft Giannis, why people didn't find Giannis. I did 2012 and 2013 was Giannis, and I like to go back and see like what's the thought process during that time. So I like to go back and think, all right, who's on that team during that time, and why did they do with it? Why did they do what they did? Why did they draft this player over that player? So I like to go back in time and revisit that, and it's fun. I did, like I said, I did I've done 2013, 2012, and I believe 2016, 2014. Yeah, I did 2014 with Karl Anthony Towns draft. But going back to what Giannis was like the 15th pick, and I actually had on a scout whose father was a VP for the Bucks, and went into like, how the hell did you find this guy? And he played in a league in Greece that was like the equivalent to like a YMCA league. Nice. Like it was that bad. So it's great that so you could see why he wasn't like a top pick, because you look back now like, how wasn't he the number 1 pick without you run there and you say Giannis number 1 pick, but he played in the YMCA level talent, and he was just super raw. Like he is what he is now still. Yeah.
Well, I gotta cut you off right there. As someone who spent the majority of my professional career in the YMCA, I can't let you dog the YMCA like that. YMCA, they get
some dogs chippy in the YMCA. A lot of elbows. I've gotten into some scraps of
without a doubt. Yeah, they get a little chippy in there for sure. Well, let's fast forward to 2020. We found out that the draft's going to be in mid-October. Kyle, there's a lot that's going to happen between now and then. We still don't exactly know. Some of these players have the ability to kind of still pull out if they want to, and there's just a lot that can go into it. But this is kind of where we stand right now, Kyle. Who do you have as the number 1 pick going into the draft? Because that's kind of the topic that everybody ends up talking about.
So I'm assuming the Warriors win the lottery just because I think right now they still have the best chance. And if that's the case, I think James Wiseman goes number 1. They don't need a scorer like Anthony Edwards. I don't think they really want to bring LaMelo Ball into that core. And I think James Wiseman kind of gives them a defensive presence down there in the low post. So I go James Wiseman.
Yeah, I'm very similar, and not to kind of cop out of my own question, but I think it really just depends on who has that pick. If it's Golden State, I'm right there with you. I think it could either be a Okoro from Auburn or James Wiseman. I think I could see Golden State backing out of that pick, trading down a little bit if somebody's interested in LaMelo or Anthony Edwards or somebody else. They could trade down and get Obi Toppin as a big guy as well. But I think it all depends on who ends up getting that first pick, whether if it's Cleveland or Atlanta or the Knicks. Chris, but Chris, who do you think?
Probably not. The Knicks, probably not.
Well, let's be honest, that's not happening.
No, that's not happening.
But as you look at it right now, who would be if things kind of shaked out like we said, who do you think would be the number 1 pick?
Like you said, it depends on the team. I mean, with this draft, there's not a clear-cut number 1 guy.
Right.
Because I've seen guys have Obi Toppin number 1, and then guys have Obi Toppin at 17.
Yeah.
And LaMelo Ball, same way. It feels like there's such a wide range between guys. Wiseman, I've heard number one, but people don't like that he's not really a shooter, and he's just, he's kind of those type of big men are kind of dinosaurs in a way,
Yeah.
Unless he could develop a jump shot and stuff, then, I could see him. But this draft is it's all over the place. Like I said, guys are ranging from 1 to 18, and it's like, it's a big crapshoot. But right now, let's say, the Warriors are the worst team. So let's say they get the ping pong ball, and I think they trade the pick, and I think they try to get a veteran because they're in win now mode. And to try to develop a guy, it takes time. These kids are young; they're coming in young, so it's gonna take time to develop. So I think they would trade the pick. I think try to get a veteran to come in. And try to help, get another guy to try to win a championship.
Yeah, but they're not going to trade the pick to a team who's going to go out and get James Wiseman. If you're trading up, you're going to get a score. So I think that puts Anthony Edwards kind of in that conversation, right?
Yeah. He's the best old LeBron player.
Yeah, one of the guards would end up being that number one pick if they traded out for sure. So what about best? Chris, I'll toss to you first, and then Kyle. Best prospect, and then who you think of the guys that have been mentioned in the top, lottery, we'll say. Who do you think is kind of lined up for a bust?
I think LaMelo is the best player. I think he has the most upside. Obviously, he comes with a lot of baggage,
right.
So I think that worries people. And he's also the top. He could be the bust, the biggest bust, because he comes with a lot of baggage and stuff. So he could be one of the, because all his his passing is tremendous. Like I posted a couple of videos on Twitter, and some of the passes he's making are elite, and that's something. He's great in transition, and he could score, and those things. If he could take it to the next level, he could be a tremendous. He could be a 25-10 guy. But on the other hand, he comes with a lot of baggage because big baller brand, big pop up. Yep. Especially in New York, I've been really back and forth. If he comes to New York, Papa's going to be loud.
Oh yeah.
And there's mics everywhere in New York. They're going to be like, oh, but how do you feel about the coach doing this? And that comes, that's tough. And he already has a lot of fame. We've heard about him since he was a freshman in high school.
Oh, sure.
So we've heard about him a while. So will he have that drive to want to be great? Because he already has the money, the fame. He's got social media. He's got millions of followers. Will that drive be there, to the next? Because he really doesn't have anything to really, work for, because he has everything already. He's got the money, like I said, money, fame, all this. So he also has the biggest bust factor to me. So he could be the best player. You could get excited because you see the passing and the scoring, but then everything else, he's very lackadaisical. If he doesn't have the ball, off the ball, no pun intended, he's useless. He doesn't really put the time in. He doesn't really move around, and defensively, he's not that good. The people, you can see the steals, and people like, oh, he had a lot of steals, but a lot of guys, Steph Curry led the league in steals one year, and we know he's not a good defender. Allen Iverson also, so that's a lie. You just you play the passing lanes well. Bad passes, anyone can get a steal. So
for sure.
I think he's both. He could be the best player, but he could also be the biggest bust. He's the most polarizing player in this draft by far. So, it's going to be interesting to see, where he goes.
Kyle, who's somebody you think could be like a late lottery into the second round that could be a good value pick, or maybe the best value pick of the draft?
All right, so I was calling you Homer picking the Celtics earlier. You can call me Homer now. Yeah, Robert Woodard II out of Mississippi State. Combo forward, got I think I read a 7'1", maybe 7'2" wingspan. He really improved his shooting this year. And you take a guy like that and maybe put him into the 4 and let him kind of be a little bit of a stretch 4. I don't know, he's not dirt by any means, but he can kind of spread the floor out a little bit if that shooting continues to improve. And so I like Robert Woodard II.
Okay, that's a good pick. I'm going to go for my value pick, and this is a guy that's going to be – it may even work his way in the lottery, but it's definitely going to be a first-round pick. And that's R.J. Hampton. He was one of the top point guards in the country coming out 2 years ago or last year. Did not play college basketball this past year, went over to New Zealand. Didn't have just a tremendous season, but I think he's going to have a little bit of a leg up where he played against some professionals, maybe not as good as some college basketball players, but all around probably better than what people saw in college. And that's going to be the guy that I think is a little bit off the radar. He's not talked about with some of the better guards in the draft, but the guy's uber talented, and I think could be a really good value for somebody picked in the maybe 12 to 18 range, and get him at a really good steal where he would have been, probably a top 5 pick if he had been able to come out of high school the year before that. Chris, we're running a little short on time, but really quickly, anybody you got as a good value pick?
Trey Jones from Duke. I'm a Duke fan, so I kind of biased with that. I'm sorry. Yeah, man. I'm a Duke fan. Yeah,
I wish I'd have known that before we invited you on the show, man. That's unfortunate. We will now edit out all your
I'm sorry, guys. But I like Trey Jones a lot. He's really improved from his freshman year to from sophomore year. He worked on, his shooting percentage went up. His defense got even better. Defensive player of the year in the ACC. So I think, he's going to be a solid pick for at the end of the first round. Good, all-around point guard and someone that could help, come off the bench, for any team.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he will be a guy that's able to, as much as it pains me to say this, he does the things that a lot of guys don't want to do. He gets in you.
Yeah, he does the dirty work. Yeah. He'll get into cards. Yeah, he'll do that dirty work.
Yeah, without a doubt. Guys, we've only got a few minutes left, but Kyle, I definitely wanted to touch on this before we left. Johnny Majors, legendary coach at the University of Tennessee, passed away this past week. We also had Pat Dye earlier in this kind of season, who's a legendary coach at Auburn University, pass away. So it kind of got me thinking, the SEC, Chris, I know you're probably not biased against the SEC the way we are biased for the SEC. But the SEC is so rich in tradition for football. And you think of all the legendary players and the teams, but the coaches, man, breaking that down. So I wanted us to put together a top 5 list, and we really don't have a whole lot of time to go into a lot of detail, but maybe just your top 5 and maybe just a little nugget about each. Kyle, I'm going to let you go last. I'll go ahead and start. So my top 5, I'm going to start at number 5. Kyle, I think this is who you were going with earlier when you kind of talked offline. It's a tie between Butch Jones and Hugh Freeze for me at number 5. I'm just kidding. Actually, I'm going to stay in Knoxville, but I'm going with the General Robert Neyland as my number 5. Number 4, the only good Dooley that's a good coach, Vince Dooley from Georgia at number 4. Kyle, you're going to be shocked here. Number 3, even though he was originally at the University of Kentucky, Bear Bryant at number 3. Nick Saban from LSU and Bama at number 2. And the number 1 coach that I have of all SEC football history is the head ball coach, Steve Spurrier, because he was dominant. He changed the game with the fun and gun offense. He got Danny Warfel, of all people, a Heisman.
Right?
He rebuilt South Carolina. He kept Peyton Manning, who is arguably the best player in SEC history, from winning the SEC, anything in the SEC, and he delivered the best line of all time, which is you can't spell citrus without UT. Chris, I will toss it to you. I know you're not an SEC guy, but who would you consider your top 5 SEC coaches of all time?
Of all time, I mean, Spurrier's in there for sure. I mean, you got to put Saban in there. I mean, I'm a Miami Hurricanes fan, so I'm more ACC.
Yeah.
But I mean, I can't think right now, but I know Saban, Spurrier. Who's the Tennessee coach?
Yeah, Mark Stoops. That's
who's the coach for Tennessee for all those years? I can't think of his name.
Phil Fulmer.
I like Phil Fulmer.
Yeah.
Who else? I'm gonna think.
You got to say Bear, right? Bear Bryant,
and oh God, I can't believe him. Urban Meyer.
Okay, yeah, that's
Urban
good.
Meyer, Florida. He had a lot of criminals on the team, and they were doing a lot of crazy stuff. They were killing people, but he got to have a few bad apples to win some national championships. So I'll put Urban in there.
All right, Kyle, you can close us out here. Your top 5.
Yeah, so I'll go 5-1. Number 5 for me, Hurts. It was down. I had 2 that kind of fit right here, and it was either Vince Dooley, who I left out, and I ended up putting in Johnny Vaught. Johnny Vaught, legendary Ole Miss coach. I mean, the stadium's Vaught Hemingway, named for Coach Vaught. And he won a national title at Ole Miss. I mean, to win a national title. But I'm pretty sure it was Coach Vaught. Yeah. So Johnny Vaught. Number 4, Steve Spurrier. I mean, the ball coach. I don't feel like I have a whole lot to say there. Yeah. Nick Saban at 3. And that's subject to change as he continues to win. Then I have General Robert Nealon at 2, and the second best college football coach of all time, Bear Bryant, at number 1. But the best college football coach of all time coached in the ACC.
Bobby Bowden?
Bobby Bowden.
There you go. Very nice. All right, guys, we got to get out of here.
I hate to agree with that. The Florida State guy. I know
but you have to agree with it. It's Bobby.
He is great. Yeah.
They went wide right, man. That's all that matters. Wide right.
I played at Samford University, and that was Howard University when Coach Bowden played there, and he coached there. So there's a Bowden connection.
Oh, dude. Okay, I get it.
If you had not heard, Kyle played college football, and that's what makes him correct in everything that he talks about.
Because of that, I'm always right.
Guys, we got to get out of here. We're running short. We're way past on time. I'm gonna have to edit the heck out of this show. But Chris, thanks so much, man, for joining us. Man, we
Thank you for having me on.
Oh man, thanks
for
having
me on, guys. This was fun.
All right, go and check out all of Chris's sites pertaining to his show. That's the Off the Ball Podcast at theofftheballpodcast.com. Check him out on all the social media sites. You know he's there, and of course, download that show wherever you listen to podcasts. Speaking of downloading shows, we'd love for you to share our show with someone who hasn't heard of us yet. We've got listeners all over this great country, and I mean really all over the world, with listeners in the Great White Canadian North, and of course, our good friend who's bubbling in Dublin, Ireland. Share the show with your friends and interact with all of us through all of our social media channels. We love for you to do that. Next week on the show, it's just going to be Kyle, Matt, and myself. And of course, right now there's no sports going on yet, so we need some topics to talk about. So send those topics in via our Facebook page, our Twitter handle. We'll put up some polls throughout the week. We want your feedback on that. Shoot us a message on Instagram if you have an idea for a show topic, because we'd love to get that. Or email us at dadswatchingsports@gmail.com. And, of course, check us out on the TikTok app, as we've been posting ridiculous dad life TikToks. And thanks to all those who've supported us and listened to us from day one. We will see you next week on the show. Thanks for listening, everyone. This has been Dad's Watching Sports. We'll see you next week.
In times of need, this is what most insurance sounds like.
Thank you for holding. What's your policy number?
But when you have coverage from AAA, you've got insurance with 3 A's. And that sounds like this.
Thank you for calling AAA. Is everyone okay?
So does your insurance sound like insurance? Or does it sound like insurance with AAA, a brand that's been helping members for over 100 years? Visit AAA.com/insurance for a free quote on auto and home coverage. In times of need, this is what most insurance sounds like.
Thank you for holding. What's your policy number?
But when you have coverage from AAA, you've got insurance with 3 A's. And that sounds like this.
Thank you for calling AAA. Is everyone okay?
So does your insurance sound like insurance? Or does it sound like insurance with AAA, a brand that's been helping members for over 100 years? Visit AAA.com/insurance for a free quote on auto and home coverage.
And that was your host, Brian Snow, with Beyond the Arc, full hour of NBA talk.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention?
Are you ready? I said, are you ready? You're rocking with the heavyweight champs of sports talk.
Don't act like you're not impressed.
Brandon Way and Brandon Rudolph.
Stop what you're doing and listen.
Tune in to Opinionated Facts, Tuesdays at 6 p.m. on the RTF Sports Network. And we're back again every Sunday at 12 noon on Facebook Live.
Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Only on the Opinionated Facts Facebook page, presented by TCP Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention?
Are you ready? I said, are you ready? You're rocking with the heavyweight champs of sports talk.
Don't act like you're not impressed.
Brandon Way and Brandon Rudolph.
Stop what you're doing and listen.
Tune in to Opinionated Facts, Tuesdays at 6 p.m. on the RTF Sports Network. And we're back again every Sunday at 12 noon on Facebook Live.
Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Only on the Opinionated Facts Facebook page, presented by TCP Network.
What's going on, everybody? Whether you're practicing social distancing of 6 feet up to 6 miles, you can still party with On and Off the Field, where you can listen to the best NFL and charity-based podcasts out there on the RTF Sports Network. You can follow them on Facebook or go to rtfsportsnetwork.com and check out the show Thursdays from 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention?
Are you ready? I said, are you?
For the latest information, news, and analysis of the Los Angeles Lakers and the NBA, check out the Lakers Fast Break podcast every Tuesday night at 9, right here at rtfsportsnetwork.com.
What's up, y'all? You know who it is. It's your boy Dylan from On and Off the Field with Durf and Dylan. So I'm just coming to let you know, on the RTF Sports Network, this show will now be live from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursdays. If you go to rtfsportsnetwork.com, you can listen to the show live from there and on our social media platforms on Facebook and Instagram. It's going to be an amazing show that is all about the fans. Also, when you go to rtfsportsnetwork.com, make sure to vote for On and Off the Field as the show of the month for April. If we win that, money is going to charity. You can count on that.
Do you love New York sports? Do you love sports in general? Join Earl Marks coming up next with Below the Mic.
In times of need, this is what most insurance sounds like.
Thank you for holding. What's your policy number?
But when you have coverage from AAA, you've got insurance with 3 A's. And that sounds like this.
Thank you for calling AAA. Is everyone okay?
So does your insurance sound like insurance? Or does it sound like insurance with AAA, a brand that's been helping members for over 100 years? Visit AAA.com/insurance for a free quote on auto and home coverage.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge.
Field! Number 70!
We're talking about practice.
Hello, you play to win the game.
The Yankees are champions of baseball.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
3, 2, 1, happy 2000!
No time on the clock, and the Patriots have won Super Bowl 36.
Jordan open, Chicago with the lead!
Worldwide Sports Radio Network presents Below the Mic.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Below the Mic, and I'm your host, Errol Marks, my co-host, Speedy Petey. Remember, you can call us at 631-965-4990. And remember, you can go to our website at worldwidesportsradio.com. And ladies and gentlemen, if you don't, you haven't, or you want to download our app, all you have to do is go to the iOS store. You go to WWSRN, and if you go to Droid or Android, all you got to do is search us at Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Speedy Petey, what's going on, my friends?
I was busy yesterday trying to deal with the technical problems we had on Tuesday, but
it's with the rain and the bad weather out there throughout the country. Obviously, we've had problems and technical difficulties throughout the social media market, so I want to apologize to all the fans. I do want to give a shout out to my friend Big Joe. His mother passed away today. I met his mother a couple of times. She was a very nice woman. He had to go to the hospital and decide what he had to do with her today. And I just want to give a shout out to his mom, his family. My heart goes out to him and his family.
Absolutely. Sorry for your loss, Joe, if you are listening. And again, being one of your best friends.
Why wouldn't he be listening?
I don't know. I'm not sure. But sorry for your loss nonetheless, and sorry for your loss being one of your best friends.
It's one of my good friends. And I want to give a shout out to Joe. His mother meant a lot to him. Obviously, everybody's mom means a lot to them. And his grandmother passed away last year. So he's been going through a lot of stuff. So I want to be here for him. And a shout out to him and his family. And I don't know what more to say about it. It's been a hard day for me today, and I'm sure for him and his family. So we have a great show lined up for you today. We will be talking to Ithaca Football Hall of Famer and National Football Foundation and New York Chairman Mark Hudak. And at 7:15, we'll be talking to Oregon softball player superstar Shea Bowden. So stay tuned for that. But as you guys know, we do this every single Thursday. Speedy. This is entertainment and sports. Heat reportedly planning to target Giannis Victor Oladipo in 2021 free agency. Well, you know Pat Riley. You know Pat Riley likes to go in there and put his hand in the grab bag and try to pull out great superstars. He had Dwayne Wade, he had LeBron James, he had Chris Bosh over the years, and they won 2 titles with all the runs that they had with the Heat. So I wouldn't be so surprised if Giannis and Oladipo will be on their high-priced free agency market paperwork.
Very interesting.
Titans, Derrick Henry discussing deal. Well, the Titans haven't made a deal with Derrick Henry. This is a guy who is an explosive running back. Last year, he was, to me, the most explosive besides Christian McCaffrey. This guy deserves all the money in the world. He took the Titans to the AFC title game. Pay and show him the money. NFL reportedly pledging $250 million over 10 years to support black communities. This isn't a surprise. The Players Union and the NFL Union are going to help out moving forward in this crisis. Massachusetts, reportedly Joe Kennedy calls for the Patriots to sign Colin Kaepernick. Why? I repeat, why would the Patriots spend money and give Colin Kaepernick an opportunity to absolutely ruin their locker room, especially everything that's going on with George Floyd?
You're talking about the team that never goes for popular moves either.
It doesn't make any sense.
You really expect them to be the ones, if anyone were to sign Kaepernick, for it to be them?
It doesn't make any sense. Colin Cowherd, Baker Mayfield will be fired if the Browns don't make the postseason. Quite possibly could happen. Here's the thing. Baker Mayfield, his first season, 27 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, had a sensational rookie year, one of the best rookie years we've seen a quarterback have as a rookie. His second, sophomore, he threw over 30 interceptions. He was not good. He had explosive players, great offensive line, even great defensive players, and still couldn't produce what he produced his first season. I do believe that if Baker Mayfield doesn't have a postseason, he will be fired from the Cleveland Browns.
I agree, especially with a new coach, too. He might want to go find his own quarterback. It might be hard, depending on how good they are, to find in this draft, but if they are really bad, don't be surprised.
Vikings have all leverage against Dalvin Cook's holdout. Dalvin Cook wants to be the highest paid running back in the NFL and quite possibly should get that money. 24-year-old who is explosive, can't stay healthy. Right. Ezekiel Elliott got the money. Gurley got the money. All the top running backs get the money, especially in their contract year. It is not his contract year. He has 2 more years left on his contract. Will Dalvin Cook get that contract? I beg to differ. I do not see it happen. No. I could see the Vikings trading him.
I could see it, too. The Vikings have always been a team that lets guys go pretty early, too, and they're good player development, so you could trust it.
Packers GM Brian Gutekunst. Gutekunst. I can't pronounce his name.
You're about halfway.
Implores Jordan Love to challenge Aaron Rodgers for starting quarterback job. Here's the problem. I do not think he's going to win the job this year from Aaron Rodgers. I do believe after this year, Aaron Rodgers will be traded and dealted. But Jordan Love, moving up the way they did in the first round, I could see Jordan Love taking over next year. I think they want to move on from Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL, one of the highest paid players in the NFL. He's also 37 years old after the end of this year. He wants, and he's probably going to declare more money from a team like the Green Bay Packers, especially if he gets them far in the playoffs with this team. I do believe Aaron Rodgers will be on his way out.
I absolutely agree, and I think if he would be on his way out, it'd probably be either in the offseason or next year's trade deadline if they do struggle.
NBA news. NBA could allow teams to replace players who opt out of playing. Now, I don't understand this. I know there's a story going on with the NBA, Carmelo Anthony, which we will get into, that he does not want to play because of the COVID-19 virus. If that is true, who are you going to add to this team? Are you going to bring G League players? Are you going to bring college players that decide not to go...
declare for the draft?
Yeah, declare to the draft. I don't know what the NBA is talking about with this. Maybe they're bringing foreign players. This is a very interesting story. Moving forward, I'm very interested to see how the NBA does deal with that.
What are the limitations to that? Because there's so many they could pick from.
Blazers, Damian Lillard reveals he once thought he was getting traded to the New York Knicks. I am not surprised about that. I do believe that Damian Lillard still could be dealt. If not this year, next year. He's getting paid a lot of money, and he's at the highest he'll ever be. He averaged almost 28 points last year. This is one of the most explosive and underrated point guards in the NBA. I do believe he might be dealt. Heat interested in Bradley Beal. I'm not surprised. There are a lot of teams interested in Bradley Beal. The Nets, the Knicks, all the teams that are bad, including the Heat. And the Heat is not a bad team. They're one of the most underrated teams this year, especially they would be a 4th or 5th seed going into the playoffs.
They were 5, yeah.
So I do see Bradley Beal getting traded. Maybe it's the Heat, maybe it's the Knicks, or maybe it's the Nets. They're going to have to give him a lot to get him.
If Pat Riley could do all these players that you just mentioned, that would be basically Big 3 2.0.
There's also another team that's very interested in him, the Pelicans. Have come out and said they're very interested in Bradley Beal. So I am not surprised. This is one of the most underrated players in the NBA right now. One of the top shooting guards that nobody even talks about. Explosive, had his best year this year. Took over the team when John Wall got hurt last year. I love this kid. I think he's going somewhere. MLB rumors. Spencer Torkelson.
There you go.
Tigers did not call me before selecting him first overall. I'm not surprised. Why would they have to call him to tell him that they're going to draft him? But obviously there are teams that have done that. Maybe they were on the cusp of maybe picking another player. But this guy was the number 1 player, and I think he's going to be a fantastic, fantastic player, first baseman moving forward.
I also think he was also, for most people, either a unanimous number 1 pick type, where they probably just figured, all right, whoever's going to be first is just going to take it anyway.
Kevin Youkilis witnessed racism against teammates at Fenway Park. I am not surprised. I've heard stories about Red Sox fans screaming racist terms and terminology out to the Yankees or out to CC Sabathia. We've heard stories with the Boston Red Sox fans how egotistic and crazy they are out in the field, and they do say a lot of crazy things out to the players. So I'm not surprised about that.
Yeah, we've heard that recently from Adam Jones, I think even only 2 years ago. And then recently Torrey Hunter came out and said it happened to him. I think Vernon Wells has said it. It's very disappointing that still happens.
MLB players will consider sitting out 2020 season if a deal isn't reached. Again, the MLB are trying to make a deal right now. Obviously, I've been hearing stories with 86, 74, 46, 60. The numbers are just growing and disintegrating. The MLB players want to be paid their money, or at least half their money, or full price money. They wanted 114 games. The MLB owners did not want to give them that. So I do believe they're going to have a season. I just don't know how many games they're going to have. So this will be interesting moving forward. I think in the next week, if there's not a contract moving forward, I could see no MLB season this year.
I think the players want anywhere between 65 and 70% of their contract what they would have made, and the owners want 40.
Max Scherzer takes another jab at the MLB team owners on Twitter. Again, he wants to be paid all his money. This is a guy that's making about $18 million a year. He's not going to want to cough up any of that money. Why would they want to cough up any of the money that they have earned and they've really deserve the compensation? These are guys that are top players in their league. Max Scherzer is one of the best pitchers in baseball, so I'm not surprised that he is complaining about the owners.
He was one of the highest paid pitchers at his time, and now his contract actually looks like a bargain, so I can see why he doesn't want to do that. NHL rumors and news. Devils GM wants 7 eliminated teams to have access to the players amid layoff. Again, we don't know how they're going to move forward with this. We do know there's going to be about 24 teams in a round robin to move into the playoff in the race.
There's going to be no crowds. We do know there are going to be specific places they're going to play. I don't know why this is moving around and back and forth banter. What's going right now on in the NHL?
It would take a lot. The NHL has a lot of healthy scratches too.
NHL targeting July 10th for Phase 3 to return to play and plan. Again, the NHL is trying to move forward with their league and their playoff run. Once the NHL comes in, I think the NBA will come in, and then you're going to see the NFL and OTAs and hopefully the MLB. This has been crazy. This COVID-19 has really ruined everything right now, moving forward with professional sports. Sports is life right now, and everybody wants it to come back. As you can see, my hair is done, so
there you go.
Barbers are opening up, so you should be excited about that. I'm ready whenever. The keeper of the Stanley Cup awaits his return to action. Well, he's sleeping with the Stanley Cup, so obviously he wants it back. That's it in the week in entertainment and sports news here on Below the Mic. I do want to get into this Carmelo Anthony situation, and I know a lot of people are not big Carmelo Anthony fans here in New York. I'm one of them that has liked Carmelo Anthony. I think he was a good Samaritan here in New York. He helped the New York Knicks win 54 games in 1 year. He was a runner-up for an MVP play, and he also was he won the scoring title that year. Carmelo Anthony, when you look at him as a player and moving forward, he missed almost a year and a half worth of basketball. And my argument with Carmelo Anthony isn't the fact that he wants to sit out because of COVID-19. It's the way he's doing it, using the press and using his platform to really take over the tabloids and the newspapers. Do we have our first call over today?
Yes, we do. Anthony LaRocco.
Anthony, what's going on, my friend?
Errol, how's it going, my man?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. Just listening to your show for the first time in a while. It's nice to hear your voice again on the radio. Good stuff.
Thank you, my friend. And looking forward to sitting down with you and possibly working out a hockey show on our network.
Yeah, listen, that would be great to get back at it. So I want to talk about briefly. You mentioned the NHL 10 training camps are going to open, and it's good to see them moving ahead. Just wanted to point out the Islanders need to get Ilya Sorokin over to the NHL. The NHL right now put that asinine rule in place where players can't sign for this season. Meanwhile, in prior seasons, it's allowed all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Colorado Avalanche made his debut in the playoffs last year. Mm-hmm. Chris Kreider signed out of college in 2012 to join the Rangers in the playoffs. So the NHL Players Association is really fighting hard on this one. But let me tell you, the Islanders getting Ilya Sorokin in for this year would be unbelievable.
I think Sorokin is a guy that the Islanders have been expecting. I also look at Sorokin. He has come out and said that he wants to come up to the NHL and that the Islanders will have their tabs on giving him that contract. He's going to want a 3-year deal worth about possibly the rookie contract, I think, would be up to, $19 million. That's what I think he's expecting, 3-year deal. I don't know if the Islanders and Lamoriello is going to agree to that, but I do believe Sorokin, he wants to come to the NHL. 2 of his best friends, one of them are playing for the Rangers right now. I think he wants, I think he wants to come up here, and I do think he wants to join the Islanders. I don't know if the Islanders are going to be able to call him up before season's end, especially this year, especially with the whole COVID-19 and traveling from Russia to here. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I do believe that the Islanders will get a contract together with Sorokin moving forward after this season.
Now, Anthony, I have a question for you because you're bringing up Cale Makar and Chris Kreider, those circumstances. Do you think there would be more pressure on it if it was a goalie in addition to them being skaters, one obviously a winger, one a defenseman?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The goalie is, it's the most important position in hockey. So for him as a guy to come in and start right away, that would be, that'd be a lot of pressure on him. However, the caveat to that is even if the Islanders can get him signed, Barry Trotz doesn't seem like a guy that's just going to, go to the rookie right away. He has 2 veterans in Semyon Varlamov and Thomas Drey. So, even if the NHL overrides the rule and he's allowed to play this year, the Islanders may use him as the 3rd goalie in training camp and just have him be on the bench in case they get some injuries. But here's the thing with Sorokin, it's very important. He's, due to his age, he's eligible to only sign a 1-year entry-level deal, which means he wants to sign right now and have that contract burn right away.
Right.
Then he automatically becomes a restricted free agent this off season and his path to make more money is a lot faster. And if he can't do that, and the NHL doesn't override this rule, he may stay in Russia for another year because the KHL is supposedly supposed to start on time. Next NHL season may not start to December or January. So if you're him, why would you wait all the way to December to play hockey when you can start playing hockey again in September? So that's the fear. If they don't overrule this, the NHL essentially screws the Islanders out of Sorokin for a whole other year.
Anthony, what is your thoughts right now with the 24-team round robin? Were you excited when you heard Gary Bettman come out? Because I'm not a Gary Bettman fan, as everybody knows on this show, but I think he's really taken initiative with the NHL and trying to get the game back in order.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was outside the box thinking. I think he took a lot of backlash because, let's face it, with having 24 teams in, like for instance, the Montreal Canadiens are in the playoffs. If the pandemic never happened, the Canadiens weren't even sniffing the playoffs. They were like 10 points out of a playoff spot. It just wasn't going to happen. So a lot of the hockey purists are saying, why are you giving a team like Montreal a chance to all of a sudden be in the dance? But I get why the league did it. Montreal, Chicago out west, those teams, original six markets, they have a strong following. So there are going to be a lot of fans tuning in now. So that's why they included them. But I think Bettman did a good job with it. Me personally, I thought he was going to do 20 teams, and that would have cut teams like Chicago and Montreal out of it, and it would have kept the hockey purists a little more.
It would have cut the Islanders out of it too.
No, the Islanders would have been in with 20.
No, the Islanders would have been in. The Rangers would have been screwed out of it.
Right.
The Islanders would have been in.
I thought. Okay.
Yeah, I think the Blue Jackets were the last Metro team.
Okay.
Yeah, the Islanders had a higher point percentage than Columbus, even though Columbus had more points. So the Islanders would have been involved anyway. But no, listen, I think Bettman did a great job. I think it's going to be an excellent tournament. I like the idea of the qualifying round, if you will, only being best of 5. And then after that, everything is traditional best of 7. I think some of the matchups are really intriguing. I think that the Rangers and the Hurricanes, the Hurricanes were one of the two teams that voted down the format because the Rangers beat them all 4 times during the regular season. So I think the Hurricanes are really going to come out and try to, beat the Rangers. They didn't want to play them, but I think they're going to be a lot of good matchups. So I'm looking forward to it.
I think when you look at the NHL playoffs, it's, to me, and I've said this over and over again, from the NBA to the NFL to any professional sports, I think the NHL has the best playoffs. It's the most exciting. Unfortunately, there's not going to be any crowds out there watching them. So I'm very interested how the players are going to be able to deal with the fact that there's no crowd screaming, there's no chants, there's no anything that you see. It might benefit teams like the Islanders. It really might.
Yeah, it might. I think that's going to be an interesting challenge to the league too. Like for instance, we would love to hear like the banter that goes on the ice, but there are going to be a lot of little kids watching this broadcast, and with no crowd, you're going to be able to hear the players and everything. So the league's going to have to figure out a way to, unfortunately for us, kind of eliminate that because hockey players, the amount of trash they talk, is the expletives flying all over the place. So
come on, Speedy. We'll have to give him earplugs. But for somebody like me and you, I mean, he's too young. I mean, look at him. Look at this guy. I mean, he has a mop on his head right now. He looks like he's 14 years old. So maybe Speedy couldn't listen and watch it. But me and you, we can. I want to hear what the players say on the ice. I think that would be very interesting to hear all the banter and all the arguing that they have on both sides of the boards.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
I think they're going to try to get creative with the presentation of it on TV. Being that there are no fans, I think they're going to try to do some interesting things like they do with like the Winter Classic, how they have just kind of like decorations and design all over the place to give it a little more of an aesthetic feel. Because with no fans in the crowd, they are going to have to do something to make it eye appealing to the person watching it on TV. But I'm interested to see how they put it all together.
Maybe they'll do those cardboard fans like that Korean baseball league's doing.
I want to see what Gary Bettman has in store, especially because I don't know if we're going to know anything until the players start training, and maybe the NHL will come out with possibly, because I remember Patrick Kane coming out and saying that he would love for all the players to wear headsets or mics so people can hear them reacting to shift changes, what the coaches say on the bench, and some of the players, the interaction that they have, some of the plans that they have, the plans of attack on how they're going to attack the goalie moving forward. I think that would be very, very interesting to hear what the players are saying on the ice. So I'm interested to see what Gary Bettman is going to try to do, where maybe some of these young kids will get to know a little bit more about some of these players that they root for. I think that would be more intriguing.
Yeah, it would. I think also, too, I don't know how much of a possibility this is, but, if training camp starts July 10th, they say it's going to be 2 to 3 weeks, let's say it's a 3-week-long camp, that means this tournament's not starting until August 1st. So the Stanley Cup isn't being awarded to sometime in early October. I mean, we don't know how things are going to progress from here. I wonder if it's a possibility if by come October they can at least start to let small percentage of fans back in the building for the games. I mean, again, I don't know how feasible that all is. Depends on how much we progress with COVID, but I'm wondering if that's a possibility too. Come October, they could start to have some fans in the building for the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, but wouldn't you want the whole playing circumstances to be the same if you all of a sudden have fans versus a later round versus not having it the whole playoffs? I feel like you have to stick to it at that point.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. If you're going to start one way, finish it that way. But, let's face it, for the NHL to have fans back in the building for the Stanley Cup final, they're going to receive so much revenue from the gate there alone by having fans back. But that's just again, I don't know how feasible it is, but I just wonder if that's something that you're thinking about.
Again, Anthony, I'm looking forward to the NHL coming back, especially the playoffs, because it's the most exciting thing to watch. And hopefully we will have the opportunity to go to the draft this year, because I would love to. Even if the fans aren't allowed there, the press could be there. I would love to go over there and get the opportunity in Montreal to meet some of the young players that are going to be drafted. This is going to be a good draft this year, highly touted, especially some of the offensive players that are coming out. So I'm very intrigued and very interested. So, Anthony, thank you for joining us, and we'll be talking soon, my friend.
Yes, absolutely. And Phil says hello. Just want to pass that along.
Who said hello?
Phil.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, right. Phil, I'll tell you this before you go, and we do have to go in about a minute or two because we have a special guest. Yeah. I will say this. I have a lot of respect for Phil and his knowledge when it comes to hockey, but he is such a homer. He is such a homer when it comes to the New York Rangers. To me, he was so on the whole Panarin thing and all this other stuff. He thinks everybody on the Islanders stink besides maybe Barzal, and he doesn't even give Barzal enough credit. To me, Filk is a homer, and he should just, maybe he should just clean Mark Messier's underwear. Maybe he'll have an opportunity to win another Stanley. The Rangers might have an opportunity to win a Stanley Cup maybe in the future. But besides that, I mean, I think he wouldn't even wash Mark Messier's underwear. He'd probably sniff it every night before he goes to bed. I mean, seriously. I mean, Filk he's out of his mind. He really is out of control. But he's the underwear sniffer. We all know that. And by the way, when he came to the draft with us, how many pranks did I try to put on this kid? Over and over. I did it to Ashley Sarge. I hit his leg under the sink. So that was interesting. But shout out to Ashley Sarge. I like to kid with Ashley, but I did. Ashley has what do they call that?
Prosthetic leg.
A prosthetic leg, and he took it off before he went to bed, so I hid it under the sink in the bathroom. So, and he got so pissed off at me when he woke up, and he thought somebody actually did rob his leg. So, no, it was me. And then I was laughing. I was on the other side. I was trying to hide my head so he couldn't see me smiling. And I tried to keep a straight face when I couldn't keep a straight face. He got so angry.
Well, don't forget, Errol, that trip almost started with us leaving without stuff. We had to go in his house and wake him up.
Oh my God! Oh, I was up till 3:00 in the morning and I fell asleep. Oh man, Filk is out of his. You know what I wanted to do? I told Anthony. I said Anthony wanted to leave. If you remember, Anthony's like, if he doesn't wake up, we're leaving. And because Anthony was so ecstatic and so happy that we were going to the NHL draft. I wanted to sneak in. We did. We snuck into the basement from his friend, and I wanted to hit him with his hockey stick. And Philk jumped up. I'll never forget it. And this guy barely was wearing anything. I mean, it was disgusting. It really was. And by the way, I love you, Philk. I still love you, even though you're a nut job, and you have such a weird personality. Just say that. And by the way, he has one leg bigger than the other. So there you go. Thank you, Anthony. What a show. What a show. Anthony LaRocca, guys. We are definitely going to bring hockey back to our network, so stay tuned for that. When we come back, we will be talking to Ithaca Football Hall of Famer and National Football Foundation and New York Chairman Mark Hudak here on Below the Mic.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Six 631-965-4990. As you know, this is Below the Mic. We are live every single Thursday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. New York Eastern Time. As you know, you can go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com and download our app on iOS and Android. On iOS, WWSRN, and on Android, Worldwide Sports Radio Network. As you guys know, we have a great show lined up for you, and we have our first guest. We are now talking to Ithaca Football Hall of Famer and National Football Foundation and New York Chairman Mark Hudak. What's going on, Mr. Hudak?
Good evening. Just take it one day at a time here on Long Island. As you know, we started opening up again yesterday, so it feels good.
Oh, it definitely feels good. I got a haircut today, Mark. I got a haircut today. I mean, I am so excited because I'll tell you this. 9 weeks without a haircut, I look like I had a mop on my head. I look like I look like I had Don King, show me his hairstyle. I really did. It was terrible. It looked like a mop.
I know the feeling. I feel like the Wolfman from Glen Cove here. I've got an appointment set for us for Saturday, so I'm looking forward to it.
I don't understand this. You have to set appointments now. It's just terrible. It's absolutely terrible.
They're backed up. They went from being the industry you didn't want to be in to being the industry you do want to be in. So I'm happy for those people that they're open now.
Money talks, Mr. Hudak.
Yes.
As you guys know, we are talking to Hall of Famer and National Football Foundation and New York Chairman Mark Hudak. So, Mr. Hudak, tell us a little bit about the inductee of 2013 in the Ithaca College Athletic Hall of Fame.
Well, I mean, that was a special night, of course. I had a great experience, playing small college football at Ithaca. My senior year was 1988. We won the national championship that year for Division III, and I was a captain and All-American on the team, and just a phenomenal group of guys. It was a really special season for us. A lot of ups and downs, very challenging, and we ended up coming out on top. And I think obviously the team's success had a large part of me getting in the Athletic Hall of Fame at Ithaca College. I was recognized personally, but I've always considered that a reflection on the success we had as a team, and it was a great night. It was something I've really appreciated over the years, and I'm hoping that my team gets inducted in these next couple of years.
Talk about that season as a whole. In the Division III National Championship in 1988, you were one of the offensive linemen that was very good on that team. And again, talk about your playing career as a whole. You played there, I think, from 86 to that year, and then just that season. What were the emotions like? What was the experience like?
Well, it was an interesting season. We, we always took pride in playing, a very challenging Division III schedule. Our first game of the year, our starting quarterback broke his leg in the first half of the game against Albany. And always a stern test for us to start out the season. We won that game and ended up putting a freshman in really the second game and continued to win. We had a very good team, of course. But anytime you put a freshman in a quarterback, it's challenging to say the least. And then, we proceeded through the season unbeaten until we got to our Cortica Jug game against our big rival Cortland, which was week 8. It was later in the it's now the last game of the season, but it was week 8 back then. And, the Cortica Jug back then, I think it was really, a real perennial power back in the 80s. The Cortica Jug sat in our film room and it collected dust for the most part. I don't even know if we took it to the games. I think the year before, the 2 years before my sophomore and junior year, I think we had beaten Cortland like 35-7, 45-7, something along those lines. But they were undefeated, and they had actually a guy by the name of Dennis Kaiser coaching them, who was an Ithaca guy who had been there. That was his 3rd year. He had really turned the program around, and they were undefeated. And I remember taking the bus over to Cortland because, the two schools are only 17 miles apart. So we bussed over there for the game, and it just, the magnitude of, the press and the media and the schools had been building up the matchup. There were 2 undefeated teams going into that week 8 matchup. And we, got off the bus, and there were, 10, 15,000 people screaming and yelling at us. And, when you pack that many people into those smaller Division III stadiums, it's electric. And, we end up losing that game 21-20. We hadn't lost to Cortland in a while. It was one of those games where, the conditions were not ideal. The officiating was, I'll say, a little slanted, and we just didn't play our best. But we ended up losing that game 21-20. And, in Division III football, in order to get in the playoffs, you can really only afford to have sometimes you have to go undefeated to get in. I think the field back then was 16 teams. Anyway, we had to win out to get into the playoffs, and then we ended up, we had to beat an undefeated Washington Jefferson team to get into the playoffs. So then the first week of the playoffs, first round, I should say, we were sent to, because we were a wild card now, because we had a loss, we were sent to Wagner College to play the defending national champions, who were also, I want to say they were undefeated as well. And they were loaded. They had great back, great quarterback, great talent all the way around. So we won that game at Wagner in double overtime. It was an unbelievable game. Again, electric, packed house, both sides of the field. And I will say, after we won that game, we were really on our way. We went back home, and we played Cortland in a rematch. We beat them. We beat the number 1 offensive team in the country the next week, Ferrum College out of Virginia, who had Chris Warren was their running back. He was a great player for the Cowboys and the Seahawks, if you recall.
Mm-hmm.
So we beat them 62-28. Then we ended up going to the national championship, and we beat Central Iowa. They were the number 1 ranked defensive player in the defensive team in the country, and their nose guard was the player of the year in Division III. So that's who I had to block all day. But we won the game 39-24, and it was we ended up the season 13-1. It was a real it was a real run to the national championship as things got going. So it was a lot of fun.
We are talking to Ithaca Football Hall of Famer and National Football Foundation and New York Chairman Mark Hudak. Now, Mark, tell us a little bit about Ithaca. I've been to Ithaca. I've been to Cortland. My friends all went to school over there. I've been to Albany. Party schools. I mean, they have a lot of these teams. They have very good academic, especially Cortland. They're very, very well known for the physical education department. Tell us a little bit about Ithaca and the growth of the school since you've been in the school and now.
Well, the schools, first of all, I'll say this, the city of Ithaca, geographically, you've got Lake Cayuga there. It's a beautiful setting. It's in the Finger Lakes in central New York. You've got Cornell on East Hill, and you've got Ithaca on South Hill, and the city of Ithaca sits down in the valley, if you will, between the two. And it's a great college town. I mean, I think universally recognized as one of the top 5 college towns in the country. It's a great place to go to school, physically. The college is about 6,500 students these days, maybe a little larger than when I went there. But it's not a liberal arts college. A lot of people think it's a liberal arts school. It's a private professional program school. You could get a liberal arts degrees, but you can get a professional degree in a number of different areas. Our business school is on the rise. Always been known as a great school for physical therapy, occupational therapy, health sciences, and communication school. The Park School is one of the best communication schools in the country. I'm sure you're aware of that. Locally, Bruce Beck, who we all know and love here in our local New York City metro market, is an Ithaca grad. Kevin Connors on ESPN comes to mind. Carl Ravitch, and of course the CEO of Disney, Bob Iger, is a Ithaca grad. So there's in media, David Muir from ABC, Ithaca grad. So great communication school, very good business program, great health sciences. And the other thing that's a lot of people don't know about Ithaca College is the music and theater arts program is one of the best in the country. So very diverse academically, very, it's a liberal, pretty liberal, small college setting, and a great place to go to school, and a different philosophically than a Cortland, and Cortland, I which I'm sure we'll get to, but I promoted and I put together the Cortica Jug game in MetLife Stadium last year, and I got a chance to work with Mike Ertz, the athletic director at Cortland, and the people over there, and they've got a great, Cortland's again, great small college environment, beautiful physical location. I mean, their facilities, athletically speaking, are really fantastic. The Jets used to hold their training camp there, so they have great facilities, and the people there. I met, I had the pleasure of meeting the president of Cortland, and the administration. The people there are fantastic. So it's a very listen. It has been a testy rivalry over the years on the field, and it's gotten out of control at different times. But it's a congenial, collegial relationship between the two schools and the administrations, and it was a real pleasure being a part of that.
You actually brought up the communications. That's actually interesting. One of my best friends in high school who also played baseball there at Ithaca, was part of that communications program. Now he's writing for a very popular website for the Mets. So
why is he writing for us, Speedy?
Why is he writing for us? I don't know.
Why is he writing for us? He's such a popular guy.
Well, we got Tim LeCastro as.
Yeah, I think he mentioned that name too in one of our conversations. So yeah,
he ended up the season. He was with the Yankees for a while, but he ended up with the. Had a very good year with Arizona, I believe.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So Mark, in terms of the magnitude of the rivalry itself, the Cortaca Jug. Like you were saying, it's a late season rivalry right around that Thanksgiving window. Talk about the magnitude of it, what it means for D3 football, and again, comparing it to other rivalries we see in D1 sports and even professional sports. Do you consider it a top tier rivalry like that?
Well, I mean, I would. I think what's exciting is I think a lot of people are starting to, not just, I'm biased for sure, but I think, leading into this year, so this past year, of course, it's called the Cortica Jug, which comes from combining Cortland and Ithaca. This past year, we put the game in MetLife Stadium. My friend Bobby Garone, who's a Suffolk County guy, and I sort of put that whole thing together, and we're both very active with the National Football Foundation, so we were able to bring them as a host, and then we brought some sponsors together, and we set the Division III attendance record, all-time single game attendance record, with 45,161 people that came to the game. So I know that, for instance, the Yankees, have hosted a number of smaller college football games. They hosted Princeton and Dartmouth this past season. I think they got 20,000 people. The only non look that kind of crowd outdraws most Division I schools on a normal Saturday in the fall. So I think that says a lot. I mean, it was a great turnout. It was a great scene for college football. I think and it was a great game. And I think the people were, if you've never seen I'll call it a high level Division III football game, it's very entertaining, and it's played at a very high level athletically. And I think some of my friends who had never been to that game were really impressed. So.
We are talking to Ithaca Football Hall of Famer and National Football Foundation and New York Chairman Mark Hudak. Mark, tell us a little bit about the National Football Foundation.
Well, the National Football Foundation is a great organization. It really supports and promotes amateur football at all levels throughout the United States. And it's consisted of chapters. I think there's 120 chapters right now in the United States. They typically have been in places they typically thrive in, college football towns, Athens, Georgia, Knoxville, Tennessee, Austin, Texas, Columbus, Ohio, places where there's big time college football programs. But they also thrive in smaller towns throughout the country where there's a football culture. The National Football, in addition to supporting and promoting the game, the National Football Foundation also owns and operates the College Football Hall of Fame. So they're the custodian of that. And that's a big deal. And most recently, they built a brand new Hall of Fame in Atlanta, Georgia. That is really if you're into college football, that's a great place to go. So they operate the process to maintain that facility, but also to elect new players and coaches to the Hall of Fame. But the thing I like most, so the organization really thrives on two levels. On the big picture national industrial football complex of being involved in the college football playoffs, the College Football Hall of Fame, but then also at a local level, on the chapter level through these 120 chapters where in New York City, for instance, the chapter that I'm chairman of, I have a board of directors, guys who come from all walks of life. We've got the finance guys, but we've also got Mark Holtzman, who from the Yankees. We've got Ernie Accorsi, the retired manager of the Giants. My friend Rob Whalen, who is the director of the Heisman Trophy, executive director of the Heisman Trophy. Donnie McPherson, great Syracuse player from Long Island. Got a very diverse and influential board. We have a dinner every spring where we recognize Mr. Football New York City, the player of the year in New York City. We pick an Elite 11 team, the 11 best scholar athlete football players in the 5 boroughs of New York City, coach of the year. We recognize what we call our Ernie Accorsi award winner, which is somebody who's done great things in the game of football, but also off the field. And then we do honor a couple other people, our Founders Award, different things. But it's a great night for football because the Giants and the Jets sponsor it, along with the New York Athletic Club and various other private backers as well. And, we typically get about 350 people to the dinner. And it's like the one night a year where our local New York City football community comes together, and we recognize these kids who have not just excelled on the field, but also excelled in the classroom, and they're good citizens, and they represent all the things that we want to see these guys representing in the game of football.
Do you think your foundation and company really helps shed light on maybe, like you were saying, some of those other lesser known football schools that are great football cultures, whether it's FCS schools, whether it's D3, something like that? Do you think that ends up helping raising just not necessarily awareness, but just more, I guess, media showing and more publicity to them?
Well, the one thing I think that I've seen, I became chairman of the New York City chapter. I don't know. It's interesting because the National Football Foundation was formed in 1947 by Dwight D. Eisenhower, General Douglas MacArthur, and the great sports writer Grantland Rice. And they really wanted to promote team sports, and in particular, football, as a way post-World War II to, foster leadership and teamwork and all the things that we're talking about, academic performance, contributions to local communities. They really wanted to put this, to really form this organization to really help mold the next generation of young men in the country post-World War II. So every year since then, they had this black tie gala, still do, at the Waldorf Astoria in New York City. Last couple of years, the Waldorf has been undergoing renovations, but so they've done it at the Marriott Marquis. But the point being, for that dinner, it brings, the entire football community nationally together. It's a, $8,000 a seat table, and all the college football programs, are there, and they have their own set of awards and the whole 9 yards. But what I'm getting at in a roundabout way, locally, what I've seen happen since I took over our chapter, these New York City coaches are doing incredible work. Okay, now I don't know whether I'll say we've made our own contributions to their culture, but from where we started, let's say 8 years ago, and where the kind of kids that we were putting on the team, the Elite 11 team, those kids are selected not only for football but also academics and their community work and their leadership and so on and so forth. The caliber, and not to say anything negative about our first team or our second team, but the kids that are making these teams are so impressive. It's incredible. And the coaches in New York City, Ernie Corsi said to me when we were getting our chapter off the ground, he said, Mark, George Young said to me once that these kids in New York City have to overcome so much just to play the game of football. They got to take the subway. They might not have a practice field. They might be able to only practice a couple days a week, whatever the situation may be. So we've gone from that kind of environment to an environment where, these kids are getting highly recruited now, and they're getting professional high school coaching. I like to call that, the coaching that they're getting professional, because these coaches in the city, they're going to clinics, they're going to colleges to visit, they're taking their kids places to partake in, passing camps, and it's really elevated the level of play, but also the level of kids that are kind of coming out of New York City now. Our first Mr. New York football, Isaiah Wilson from Brooklyn Poly Prep, we started this award 4 years ago. He was just selected the last pick in the first round of the NFL draft by the Tennessee Titans. So you're getting really good kids out of this area, Long Island included, but also New York, who are getting great coaching, great guidance, and then going on to have like really good college careers and sometimes even pro.
As you guys know, we are talking to Ithaca Football Hall of Famer and National Football Foundation and New York chairman Mark Hudak. Moving on to the NFL. And Mark, I know you're a football fan. You played football. And the NFL seems to like to change rules. And they're right now trying to design this onside kick if you decide you don't want to go for or they're trying to get rid of the onside kick and move to a 4th and 10.
15.
4th and 15 on your own 25. And if you get it, you get the ball back. Now, you look at the NFL and you look at what happened to the Saints a couple of years ago, which cost them possibly a Super Bowl championship, and bringing in arguments and challenges when it comes to plays that the coaches think they can argue and challenge. Do you think the NFL and Roger Goodell is hurting the game or helping the game by changing these rules?
Well, right now, as you know, the focus is on player safety, right? I mean, that's what's driving a lot of these. It's always, with respect to rules change, it's either about competition or it's about player safety. Especially on the kickoff and kickoff return side of things. I mean, these coaches are so creative, and they've just created different ways where, you're really attacking the ball, and the guys who are sitting there are taking a tremendous. I was always on the kickoff return team, and you're sort of backpedaling, and these guys have a 40-yard head start, and you're taking them on. Those collisions are significant. So I think a lot of these rules with respect to the kickoff, kick return game, onside kicks, it's about player safety. So, I'm all for that. I don't think it substantively changes. I haven't seen the latest proposal, but I don't, I'd rather modify some of those things than modify some of the more, substantive things that we know that constitute the game of football. And I think, with respect to replay, look, that what happened to the Saints 2 years ago was really a disaster. And, if you can put some processes and procedures in to eliminate those things from happening again, you got to do it, So, the game's going to, the game's, Roger Goodell has a tough job. I mean, he's highly compensated, so I think that goes with the territory. That goes with the territory. But I think overall he's done a pretty good job. These are not the easiest of times either in many ways, and I think he's done a pretty good job of navigating the waters for the most part.
Last question for me. After your playing career at Ithaca, you actually became an offensive line coach at Pitt. And one of the guys you coached ended up being a Hall of Famer in the NFL, in Reuben Brown. Talk about your experience coaching him and coaching at Pitt when you were there. That time of my life, those 2 years I was at Pitt was a really great time for me personally and professionally. Pittsburgh is a great city to live in. If you've ever been there, I mean, the city itself has a lot to offer, and Pitt football is a big deal there, and Pitt football has a great history. I personally love that whole, Steel Town, tough Western PA kind of mentality that they have there. So I was right at home. I love being there. I used to ride my bike from my apartment to Pitt Stadium, and riding my bike right into Pitt Stadium and park it, and go to my office and go to work. Johnny Majors was the head coach there. Coach Majors just recently passed away, which was very. I'm
sorry to hear that.
Great guy, great person. I love Coach Majors. He was such a nice man. Hall of Fame coach, Hall of Fame player, great player. Heisman runner-up in, I want to say, 1957, maybe something along those lines. And just a coaching tree. Incredible coaching tree. Johnny, Dave Wanstead, Jimmy Johnson, Barry Switzer. I mean, he just had an incredible coaching tree. At one time, I think it was second only to Bill Walsh. But Reuben I was assistant offensive line coach, and I worked with the tackles and tight ends primarily. And Reuben didn't need a whole lot of coaching, but I coached him. I mean, and he lives on Long Island. He could attest to. I'd get in there and bark at him a little bit, but he was such an incredible athlete, and Reuben, when he was at Pitt, when I was there, Reuben was not a great fan of conditioning, was kind of always a heavier guy, but always had incredible, athleticism and feet, footwork. Was a guy who would run a 4.8, 4.9. I mean, he was a great athlete. But as he evolved as a player and went to the NFL and played for the Bills, I'm originally from Orchard Park, so I mean, they love him in Buffalo. He really became a pro, and by that I mean, he really learned to take care of his body. He became became a student of the game. I mean, he had a great pro career, great college career, great pro career, and a great guy. And he came from inner city Pittsburgh, didn't come from a lot, and he had to sort of grow out of that. Went through a couple instances of his own, and really matured into a really good person, and well liked by universally well liked, and a great player.
As you guys know, we are talking to Ithaca Football Hall of Famer and National Football Foundation and New York Chairman Mark Hudak. Before we let you go, Mark, I do want to tell you this. I respect everything that you have pointed to us and really given us some great information on Ithaca, your career. And I want to give a shout out to somebody that actually got you on our show, and that's Jillian, our social media. I call her our social media queen. She has worked very, very hard, bringing in so many different guests on our network. And I wanted to give her a shout out with you on the phone. So she's great. She works her butt off, and we have some great, great, great people working here at the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Jillian, too. Well, thank you for having me on, guys.
Absolutely. If we would love to come and interview in person, and maybe even come to one of your events for the National Football. The National Football Foundation. We would love to come down, interview some of the people that run the organization. It would be great.
I'd love to have you come aboard and participate. That'd be fantastic.
Absolutely. We'll reach out to you. We really appreciate you joining us, Mark.
Guys, thank you so much. Good luck with the show, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, guys.
As you guys know, that was Mark Hudak. Gave us some good information about Ithaca, his Hall of Fame career, and really just telling us what he thought about with the football changes and really the growth of the NFL moving forward. A great interview. When we come back, we're going to get into some NBA conversation. I've got a lot to say, and then we're going to have our second guest, which we'll be talking to Shea Bowden here on the one, the only, Below the Mic.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
631-965-4990 is the number to call. This is Below the Mic. We are live every single Thursday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. New York Eastern Time. As you guys know, you can follow us by going to our website at www.Worldwide Sports Radio Network. As you guys know, and by the way, I want to give a shout out to Mark Hudak. Gave us some great pointers, not only with Ithaca, but sports and really the National Football Foundation. Great interview. Gave us some great information. So shout out to Mark Hudak. I do want to get into this before we have our next guest, Shea Bowden, who's going to be joining. She's going to be joining us in about 10 minutes. Here's the problem here, and I itch my head with this because, again, LeBron James is the spokesman right now for the NBA. He's the best player in the NBA. He's the superstar of the NBA. And maybe he isn't the best player in the NBA anymore. Maybe it's Giannis or Anthony Davis or whoever you want to pick, any one of them. Mm-hmm. But the problem with LeBron James lies with his mouth. And this has been the problem not only with LeBron James, it's been a problem with Dwayne Wade, Carmelo Anthony, really that whole 2004, 2003, and 2002 draft class. And they've been running the NBA rampantly for the last 20 years.
And it's not going to go away anytime soon.
And some of the young players, when we just talk about Giannis and Anthony Davis and some of the growing superstars that we're seeing grow and soon to be Zion Williamson and RJ Barrett and all the different talented players we've seen come in and out of the last couple of drafts. What bothers me about the NBA right now and LeBron James is LeBron James just seems to talk not only for the players, he talks for the league.
Yeah, it seems like he's been like that for a while, but now especially more with everything going on. He really has been speaking a lot. And again, that's who he is. But again, yeah, I would agree with you. A little
Social media has been my concern, not only for the NBA, but professional sports. Now, Twitter is used as a platform for these players to get their opinions out, not only to the world, but to the fan. Here's the problem with Twitter. The problem with Twitter is you're listening to the player on what he thinks, not what everybody else is thinking. He speaks for all the other players, even though the other players might not agree with LeBron James. And LeBron James, and I've said this over and over again, there's no doubt he's one of the greatest basketball players of all time. There's no doubt that he is. The problem with him is he has a platform where he can shake and bake or whatever he wants to do, where he can structure what he says to be the answers to whatever his opinion is to the world.
Yeah, and again, because there's going to be more social medias, more technology that comes in, it's not going to be something that goes away anytime soon. So we're seeing it now where some people obviously are embracing it and fighting with him and speaking in their mouths all the time, and there's others like you and I that, yeah, we know what he's fighting for, we get what he's fighting for, but again, do you have to say something every day?
Have you? And there's a guy named Joel Embiid, and Joel Embiid is very high profile, loves to open his mouth. How many times did we see him on Twitter over the last 2 years attack players? He's attacked Kevin Durant, he's attacked Steph Curry, he's attacked LeBron James, he's attacked practically everybody in the NBA. We haven't heard Joel Embiid say nothing about what's going on in the NBA, what's going outside the NBA, none of this. And the reason why is, and I think Joel Embiid has it right, is he realizes it right now in the world with everything going on, sometimes it's best not to speak. Right. Sometimes it's not. And LeBron James, and I understand he uses the platform just like Colin Kaepernick did with kneeling to the national anthem. To me, it sets forth not only that LeBron James is going to be looked at this right now in a high-profile time, COVID-19. This will be remembered. COVID-19 year will be remembered because we have never had a loss of season as long as we have in professional sports since the 1930s and 40s.
Right. World War II was the last time. A lot of baseball players, some football players went in there from 1942 after the U.S. got bombed by Pearl Harbor to 45. That was the last time. And there were even some other independent leagues that were playing at that time. It's not like there was nothing like we have now.
And this is not make and take shots at LeBron James week, okay? Because I did say what I felt about LeBron James on Tuesday, and Carl, shout out, one of our fans, reached out to me after the show and pretty much told me, why would you blame LeBron James for the Big Three team thing where all these top superstars are now joining forces to win championships because the Boston Celtics did it with Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen.
Yeah, theirs was a trade, though. That wasn't guys forming together all the time. Unless, again, it wasn't noted that those guys were forming, but that was a trade. There's a big difference between that and players essentially tampering with each other to say, all right, we're going to go play here next year when you're in the middle of another season.
Let me ask you guys a question. Michael Jordan was in the league for almost 14, 15 years. Mm-hmm. Michael Jordan never joined forces with anybody on another team. He was a Chicago Bull. He never went to another team except the Bullets because he was running the organization when he went to the Bullets. He's the one that hired Doug Collins, and Doug Collins is the one who asked Michael Jordan to come back because he believed that Michael Jordan had a little bit left, which he did before he tore his meniscus. But you never saw Michael Jordan go out and try to form a big three or go and play with Magic Johnson or Larry Bird, like I said on Tuesday. You never saw that. And the one thing that I can say about Michael Jordan that you never did see is you never heard Michael Jordan talk about things politically off the court. Right. And you heard that in The Last Dance. He didn't want to get into the politicians or the political end. He just wanted to play the game of basketball and be the best player he could be. Why is it that LeBron James politically opens his mouth? LeBron James likes to put his 2 cents with everything that's going on in the world when it has nothing to do with him. And I'm sorry, it doesn't have anything to do with him. And the way the NBA is designing this round robin, LeBron James has his own thoughts to it. Now, LeBron James, and I will say this over and over again, he needed that other superstar player to play beside him with the Lakers if they had any chance of winning a championship. There were stories coming out last year before the Pelicans decided not to trade him that LeBron James was trying to persuade Anthony Davis at the All-Star game to come aboard and come and play with the Lakers. And there were stories coming out from the Lakers organization that it wasn't a sure thing that he was going to go to the Lakers because he was very intrigued with the New York Knicks and that organization with some of the youth that they have over there and the money that he can make and the endorsements he can get in New York City.
Yeah, again, the Lakers seem like a sure thing for a lot of teams or a lot of players now, but a lot of times it doesn't happen that way. We saw with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, too.
Well, Paul George, and I know a lot of people thought he was going to go to the Lakers. Paul George, who grew up a Laker fan, grew up in L.A., he always wanted to play for the L.A. Lakers. He didn't want to play with LeBron James. And I'll tell you this right now, say whatever you want to say about LeBron James. I don't think Anthony Davis wants to play there either. The only reason why Anthony Davis wanted to go over there is because he thought he had a better chance of winning over there, and he knew that the Lakers were going to make a significant trade and give up a significant stock to get him.
So from that logic, do you think he has a better chance of leaving if they do win or don't win?
I don't know if Anthony Davis is going to stay there, even if they do win or lose this year. Anthony Davis becomes an unrestricted free agent. A restricted free agent this offseason. That means he can decide where he wants to go. And I've heard stories coming out, not only from his camp, but other camps, that he wants to go back to Chicago. And he wants to play for his hometown, a team that he grew up rooting for, Michael Jordan. That's why he wore number 23. And that's why he wears number 23. And that's why LeBron gave him the number 23, Michael Jordan. Right. So I do believe Anthony Davis believes that it's not a sure thing that he's coming back to the Lakers. And he wants to have the best chance and the best team to go out there and win a championship. That doesn't mean he's going to stay with the Lakers. And LeBron James will try everything and try to persuade his way in. I mean, there were stories coming out from LeBron James' camp with Bronny Jr. Stating that Bronny Jr. wants the league to take away the fact that you have to go and play college basketball or play in the G League and just come into the NBA at the age of 17, 18 like his father did when they took it away probably...
I think 2007.
Yeah, 3 or 4 years after LeBron James came into the league. The problem here with LeBron James is he is trying to make rules for the NBA. Him and Chris Paul, and I love Chris Paul, and I have a lot of respect for Chris Paul as a player. Chris Paul is the biggest pain in the ass. He really is. I don't want to hear about his State Farm garbage that he puts on TV and LeBron James being a part of it, and then James Harden being a part of it. To me, it's a publicity stunt, and the fact that Chris Paul wants his face on every single media outlet, internet outlet, it's ridiculous. Him and LeBron James have been not only the spokesman for the NBA and the Players Union for the last few years. To me, they've been the appealing poison that the NBA has been trying to get rid of for the last couple of years, ever since David Stern stepped down and Adam Silver took over. So I think the NBA needs to look at this. They need to somehow get to LeBron James and tell LeBron James to keep his mouth shut, because LeBron James, for some reason, not only wants to be a part of the production end of movies or making TV shows or doing everything else. Now he's he's creating a coloring book and a book. I mean, this guy has his hand dipped in everything. I mean, he's multifaceted, and to me, he's a